a police officer should be. May his retirement be filled with blessings, joy, and good health as he embarks on this new chapter of his life. And I will say, Nelson, personally, I thank you for everything you've done. You've led a dedicated and honored career here for 28 years and 34 years in our area serving Pendel. So I have a plaque that I want to present to Nelson. I want to give him an opportunity to say a few words if he would, because it's been 34 years. I know he's got a few things he might want to say. So this says Middletown Township Police Department, Officer Nelson Webb, badge number 4454. Congratulations on your retirement after 28 years of honorable service, June 24th, 1996 to June 28th, 2024. Congratulations, Nelson. And he doesn't want to say any words. So with that, thank you, Mr. Kizak. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Officer Webb, for your dedication and service to our community. Wish you the best of luck on your retirement. We'll just give folks a minute. All right, next on the agenda, we wanted to recognize a local student athlete, Kennedi Dobson. And I don't know if folks have heard about her or are aware of this. Kennedi is a 17-year-old junior at Neshaminy High School, and she will actually be competing at the United States Swimming Olympic Trials. Kennedi has qualified for 5 separate events, which start on June 15th and conclude on June 23rd. She has qualified to swim against the very best in the United States to represent our country in France next month at the Olympics. Only 0.31% of all registered swimmers in the United States qualified to race next week at the trials. Her events are the 200 freestyle, 400 freestyle, 800 freestyle, 200 backstroke, and 200 individual medley. This is just an unbelievable accomplishment, and we all here in Middletown are really proud of Kennedi, and we will be cheering her on and wish her the best of luck at the Olympic trials. So good luck, Kennedi. Next on the agenda, we have several proclamations, 2 proclamations. The first being a proclamation recognizing June as Pride Month in Middletown Township, and it reads as follows. Whereas June is recognized as Pride Month in the United States and around the world as an opportunity to celebrate sexual diversity, promote equal rights, and build awareness of the challenges faced by LGBTQ2S+ community and the work that still needs to be done. And whereas Pride Month is an opportunity to prevent discrimination and promote acceptance and inclusion of all, and to support the development of harmonious and respectful relationships amongst all members of our community. And whereas the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors created a Human Relations Commission in 2020 to defend the diversity of our gender and sexual minority communities and express a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion in our organization and our community, now therefore be it proclaimed that we, the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors, proclaim the month of June as Pride Month and shall fly the pride flag in front of the Middletown Township Municipal Center during the month of June in expression of our support for inclusion, safety, and acceptance of members of the LGBTQ2 S+ community. Be it further proclaimed that we, Middletown Township, encourages and supports the celebration of June as LGBTQ2S+ Pride Month. Middletown Township Board of Supervisors proclaim this 11th day of June, 2024. And the second proclamation is a proclamation recognizing Juneteenth in Middletown Township, and it reads as follows. Whereas on June 19th, 1865, months after the Civil War ended and more than 2 years after President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation freeing enslaved people, Union troops arrived at Galveston, Texas to free 250,000 people still held in bondage. The arrival of Major General Gordon Granger and his troops signaled that the federal government would not relent until the last enslaved people in America were free. And whereas on Juneteenth, we commemorate that day and honor the tireless work of abolitionists who made it their mission to deliver the promise of America for all Americans. And whereas June 19th has a special meaning to African Americans and is called Juneteenth, combining the words June and 19th, and has been celebrated by the African American community for over 150 years. And whereas in 2019, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf signed Act 9 declaring Juneteenth National Freedom Day a statewide holiday. And whereas in 2021, President Joe Biden signed the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act declaring Juneteenth a federal holiday. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors, proclaim June 19th as Juneteenth in Middletown Township. And be it further proclaimed that we, the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors, encourages all residents to learn and understand the significance of the celebration in African American history and in the heritage of our nation. Middletown Township Board of Supervisors proclaim this 11th day of June 2024. And next on the agenda, we have an update on the African American Museum. Do we have an update?
I don't believe Miss Sally was able to join us tonight.
Okay. Then we will move on to the next agenda item, which is public comment. This is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any public comment on non-agenda items? Just please step up to the microphone and state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Pam Jacobek. I live at 2183 Langhorne Yardley Road, which, for your reference, is right across from Maple Point. The crosswalk is right in front of my house. I'm just jumping on the bandwagon about the trash. I already have trouble with the raccoons, the skunks, and the groundhogs at my property. It's going to get worse. It's already worse because of the school being built and all of the disruption with the road project. So please, don't make me store my trash for a whole week. It's not going to work for me. And I know this is not truly an agenda item. Please, please, please implore PennDOT to reduce the speed limit on Langhorne Yardley Road. You have a school going up there. It's 40 miles an hour. You go right up the road, it's 35 miles an hour. 40 means 60 to most people that are younger than me. They just fly up and down that road, and it's very, very dangerous. And I'm concerned about the kids. And I've been here before about kids. Please, I know you're awarding a lot of contracts for road pavement. If it's anywhere where kids are going to be crossing, I know before it was like in September, October, they were still doing Briggs Road and the properties behind us, and they were jackhammering as the children were trying to cross the street at 7:30 in the morning at Maple Point, and it's unacceptable to me. So please, if there's any contracts, if you can put in there that they're not allowed to do dangerous equipment during school crossing time, that would be really appreciated, because the kids really need our security, safety, you know what I mean? Whatever that word is right now. All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Yes, please just state your name and address.
Bob Feather, 35-year Highland Park resident. You all know me. How are you? I hope everything is well. I'm here on behalf of myself and my neighbors, and you are all familiar with some of our concerns that we've brought to your attention over the past several years. Before I go into what my main topic is, I'd like to say thank you to Chief Bartorillo. One of our concerns was always with the trucks and tractor trailers that would park in front of our homes idling for long periods of time in the Langhorne Square Shopping Center. And Chief Bartorillo got involved, and he made a significant impact with that for us. And to you, thank you. My next issue is I would like to request that the township perform another, actually, most of our concerns are related to air and noise pollution, okay? I'd like to make a request that the township perform another noise sampling, I guess you want to call it, whatever it's called, but we'd like to have another noise test performed, not only with the samples that were taken in the 3 locations at the time of that last test. We would like to have the tests also taken within the parameters of the ordinance 320-101, which is 30 feet from the generation of the noise. And 3 locations would be nice, as well as taking the samples from the 3 locations that were taken previously. But we would like these samples taken to address our original concerns, which the last noise sampling test did not address, which is the refrigeration trucks that sit in the loading bays for hours on end, idling at high RPMs at 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning. So we know, we know that the decibel readings are going to be higher than what the requirements outline in this ordinance, and we'd like to have an accurate sampling taken, and go from there. Because 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning to have that sitting there in front of your house is just unreasonable. Unreasonable. That's all.
So I just have a question. What time did we do the testing before, and what time are you suggesting them to do the testing if they were
Well,
to?
it's not so much the time, although the time is a factor for us because those trucks are sitting there at 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning.
I'm just
Let
asking
me
because
finish.
I've walked by your house every morning for the last 3 weeks between 6 and 6:15, and I've only seen one truck sitting there at the dock.
Again, I don't know when they make their deliveries. I do know I'm awake. I rarely sleep. I'm awake and I can't sit in my backyard. And we're talking, again, 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Mondays are most frequent. Fridays are most frequent. All I'm asking is that you find out, and it's easy enough to find out when they're going to be making their deliveries and when the trucks will be sitting there.
The only thing I want to say, and I know we've been over this a number of times,
Yep.
But we did that, and we had our engineer go out and take multiple decibel readings, and we did them at times and locations that were determined based on information that you provided, and the feedback was that there were no violations of the noise ordinance. And
And
I
again-
understand you're asking us to go out and do it again, but I'm not understanding, you're not really articulating what was unreliable about the last testing and what you're asking us to do differently. To Ms. Corporal's question, is there a specific time that you're asking us to go out that we didn't go out the first time?
Again, I don't know what their delivery schedule is. Most of the time, these trucks are sitting there at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and for an hour on end. They're also there at 6 p.m. most days, sitting there for an hour on end. You have the refrigeration units operating at high RPMs for that period of time. Now, we did have the engineer go out and do that sampling, but it wasn't with those trucks sitting in the loading bays with the refrigeration unit idling or running at high RPMs. That's what I'm asking. That's what we're asking. We're asking you to have a sampling taken when those trucks are sitting there with the refrigeration units running at high RPMs. I don't know when they're there all the time. I do know that when I'm sitting on my back porch at 6 o'clock in the morning and they're sitting there, it's not a relaxing feeling. It's not reasonable, is what it is.
Okay, we'll take it into consideration. We'll look at the testing we did before, and we'll take it under advisement. We'll discuss it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, I believe I saw Miss Sally come in. Are you able to give us an update on the museum? Okay, so then we're going to have Linda Sally from the African American Museum of Bucks County here to provide us just with a brief update on the ongoing construction, if you don't mind. Sorry to put you on the spot, Miss Sally, right after you walked in, but
It's all right. That Philadelphia traffic is really a monster. Good evening, and thank you for having me. Let's see. As you all know, we started this work with the museum. It started in 2014. So it was leased to the African American Museum for $1 for 29 years. But after it was given to us, we went into the pandemic, as you all know. So that delayed everything for 2.5 years. Bucks County was shut down. But we're doing some great movements now. We have raised over $1 million. This is the African American Museum. This has nothing to do with the Bucks County. And we need to raise $2 million more. Every time you go into an old building and you start tearing down things, as you may all know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. To give you some ideas of some of the things that's already been done, the windows are all in. If you've gone by to see the building, you see the windows. I'm so proud of that. That sounds like a little thing. The rooms are actually, the electrician are there every day putting in the wiring. The plumbing is in. We're waiting to turn the water on. That's a great big move. We also have three fireplaces, which have to be, the stones have to be replaced. That's another large job. We're talking about restoring the little building that's, if you go down 413 and you see our building first, and then there's a little white building there. Ooh, I am so sorry. Let me turn this down. Excuse me, trying to turn it off. So what we have 2 large bathrooms already there, but we need to put it's just room right now. Some things have to be brought in. Our elevator is not there yet. The elevator will not be in until everything inside is open, ready for these doors and the electricity to be turned on. So we're waiting on that. So to be honest with you, we're looking to open spring of '25. Originally, we was hoping to open this year, but no, there was too much work that needed to be done. A whole lot of digging in the base. The basement is complete, thank goodness. The piping has been done. You have the plumbing, and you have the pumps are in. So there's so much work to this building. Every time I think about it, I get annoyed. I said, what else is going to happen here? But it's coming along. It is coming along. And I do have some things to share with all of you. If you would, I don't know if I brought enough because I put it in, I would like to. No, I did not. I did not bring enough. But it's really a budget, and it tells you what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I would like to leave it someplace for someone to, I don't know if I can give it to you. So basically, if you have any questions, I can try and answer them for you. About the building, do anybody have any questions about it?
Well, anybody that saw the building when you started certainly understands the challenge that you are facing and have faced. And so I think all of us here in Middletown are very excited by the progress that you've made. That's a lot. That's a substantial amount of progress that's been made. And obviously, we're all excited and eager for the museum to open. Do any board members have any questions, or members from the public have any questions for Ms. Sally about the museum?
Okay. Well,
No
with
questions.
that,
Well, we wish you the best of luck with your fundraising, and we'll certainly review the materials.
we are doing a fundraising.
Okay.
It's going to be June 22nd, right at the Mayor's Park. And we would love for everybody to come. Now, this is introducing the African American Museum to the community. We are a family, and we want everyone to know about you, about us. So join us that day. Come out and bring it. If you have businesses, come and join us and hear what we have to say. A lot of things will be said. Of course, it's Juneteenth Day, which is the Day of Freedom for African Americans. And we will tell the history. I do have a few brochures I can leave on the table for people to take if they like.
That'd be great.
And I thank you all. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to just close out.
Thank you so much for coming.
What time? I'll give you, here. Okay. So the timing, we're asking vendors to get there at, let me get my glasses. We're asking the vendors to arrive at 9 o'clock, but we're gonna start at 10, okay? So the park is for free. Come on out and enjoy the history of Juneteenth Day and come and meet all the members of the African American Museum, the board members. We will have a children's tent there as well, and bring your children. because we have games and things for them to enjoy. And hopefully Sesame Place will be there with us. Okay? Thank you. Have a good evening. And I look forward to seeing you all on June 22nd.
Thank you so much. All right, that will move us into the consent agenda items, and they are as follows. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of June 11th, 2024 bills list in the amount of $1,175,495.79. B, consideration of approving the May 13th, 2024 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. C, consideration of barn agreement with Neshaminy School District. D, consideration of Department of Public Works Yard Improvements Phase 1A change order number 4 for a negative $39,565.23 for balancing of final quantities completed for water pipe, ballards, and site materials. E, consideration of Department of Public Works Yard Improvements Phase 1A payment certificate number 6 in the amount of $947,693.99 for completed work per the contract items. F, consideration of South Flowers Mill Road Drainage Project Payment Certificate Number 1 in the amount of $11,309.98 for completed work per the contract items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I make a motion to approve all consent agenda items as stated.
Thanks, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of Orchard Square Apartments preliminary and final land development approval, TMP number 22-012-613-OC2 S/LD number 23-7 AO Apartment Office Zoning District. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. Matt McHugh, attorney for the project. I'm here this evening joined by representatives of Scully Company, who are the applicant, developer, owner of the property, along with our civil engineer, John Alanikov, and also our traffic engineer, Tyler Kraus. This is a preliminary final land development plan for your consideration for the construction of 72 additional apartments at the Orchard Square apartment complex, along with the clubhouse and pool. Just for a little bit of background, the Scully Company was the longtime manager and operator of the Orchard Square Apartments. They recently acquired the property about 3 years ago. There had always been contemplated a phase 2 of the development, and they've been working since they acquired the property to go through the process to get those approvals. We started with a lengthy zoning process 2 summers ago when we filed our original plan for zoning relief. At that time, we received some opposition to that version of the plan. We met with township staff, we met with neighbors in a couple of meetings and revised the plan and ultimately received variances from the zoning hearing board back in, I think, December.
Can I just?
Sure.
I just want to pause you for 1 second. I'm going to see if we can get the screen to, it's a little bit difficult to see. Yeah? Okay. All right, you can continue while we're working
Sure.
on that.
So we received the variances from the zoning hearing board, and since then, we've been working through, we filed our land development plans and have been working through various issues, waivers, review letter comments. We're at a point now where we'll comply with all of the various review comments. We have a handful of waivers that we'll go through, but I understand it's been a little while since the board has seen this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have John Alanikov come up, who's our civil engineer, and have him kind of run through some of the highlights of the plan, and then we can get into some more of the specific details on the waivers.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if it's possible at this point to have the aerial put up. I know we're working on it, but I guess while we're working on getting the aerial up, I'll just give some highlights about the existing conditions of the property. As Matt mentioned, the property is located in the AO zoning district, the current location of the Orchard Square Apartments. The property in its whole is about 14.5 acres in size, and if you're familiar with the property, about half of that is developed right now, so the proposal for this is to develop the second half of the property. The property is bounded by Orchard Avenue, Granite Avenue, Old Lincoln Highway, and Fair Hill Avenue. And you can see as the aerial is now on the plan right now. So, looks like, does this not show up on the screen, I guess? Okay. Okay. Looks like it doesn't work. Okay. All right. No, if that one doesn't work, I doubt mine will work, so please bear with me. So Granite Ave is at the top of the plan. You've got Orchard Avenue that is located on that right-hand side of the plan. Old Lincoln Highway to the bottom of the plan, and then there are residences adjacent to us, and then Fair Hill Avenue located on that left-hand side. As I mentioned, the half the property is currently developed with 84 apartment units. Those are garden-style apartments. So the style of what we are proposing with these apartments will be the same. Those garden apartments are permitted by right in this zoning district. I should note that on the existing property, there really is not anything in the way of stormwater management today. There is stormwater conveyance, but there is nothing in the way of something like a basin or any rate reduction, volume reduction, BMPs on the site. And just to note there, the existing access to Old Lincoln Highway, I'm just going to go up and point to it. We are going to realign that access so that it is further to the south there, and it's going to align with an existing driveway across the street, which will make for a more logical traffic situation out there. So if we can switch to the proposed rendering, which was up there previously, I'll try to. All right, wonderful. So the proposal is to add 72 apartment units and a clubhouse to this property, that second half of the property. There are a total of 5 apartment buildings and 1 clubhouse, and you can see that on the south side of the plan there is a smaller apartment building that is attached to the clubhouse. So that clubhouse is the area with a pool behind it. There are 72 units proposed. And I mentioned we are shifting that access to be more aligned with that drive that is across the street there to make for a little bit of a better traffic movement. One of the highlights that we feel as part of this is we are going to be substantially increasing the amount of stormwater management on this site. As part of the plans, we are proposing 3 underground stormwater management basins where none exist on this property today. The net result of the addition of those basins is a reduction in stormwater rate runoff that we feel is substantial. Just some high-level numbers. Typically when we design for stormwater, we design for 2, 5, 10, 25, 50-year, and 100-year storm events. People generally hear about those 100-year storm events, those big storm events. For those smaller storm events, you're looking at reductions, so smaller being the 2, call it 2 through 10 storm events. You're looking at reductions in stormwater rate runoff of 39%, 49.9%, and 54%. For those higher ones, the 25, 50, 100-year, you're looking at reductions in 48.9%, 39.4%, and 26.5%. So there is a substantial benefit going on when we look at this development when it comes to stormwater. We understand that there are concerns about stormwater management, and we feel we are really addressing those with what's required. Now, one of the comments in the letter we received and feedback we received from staff, from residents, from members of the Planning Commission was with that stormwater. So on top of those basins that we're adding, we have agreed to add 2 additional stormwater rain gardens. So those are shallow depressions with additional plantings. And I'm just going to go point to them because I can't use the laser pointer. So we are proposing a rain garden in this area, as well as a rain garden in this area.
Just do me a favor, when you go up to the screen again, take the microphone with you because people who are watching at home can't hear what you're saying if you're not talking in the microphone.
My apologies, I'll do it again.
That's okay.
So those rain gardens, the 2 are located in this area and then in this area as well. So what those will help do, those areas are downstream of the existing apartment buildings, so that will be an added benefit to those, that existing area. So in those, the benefits of those rain gardens are not included in those reductions. So they will only add to the reductions that we are going to have as part of this development. In addition, there is one more area that was requested by the Township Engineer's Office, which is adjacent to the access drive. So what we agreed to do is provide a curb cut there that will lead to some amended soils. So some of that driveway runoff will run through those amended soils, which help promote infiltration and help promote further runoff and absorption into the ground. So we have really tried to do our best to try and help reduce the potential for stormwater runoff as a part of this development. Another thing I'd like to point out is landscaping. So you can see around the perimeter of that, of the existing development. So along the top of the plan, along Granite, and then adjacent to the residences on Fairhill, there's a very dark green area. That is existing vegetation that is to be maintained. And I'm gonna walk back up there now. So you'll notice as part of this dark green area, there are some smaller trees that are denoted here. Those are all proposed plantings. So as part of the development, we are going to be proposing additional understory plantings that will help augment that buffer in that area. So it's not only along by the residents along Fairhill, but also along Granite as well. Those will consist of smaller ornamental trees. There will be shrubs in there. So think of things like rhododendrons will be planted in there. So we're trying to diversify that buffer. So not only will it be thicker and have more plantings, but there'll also be a mix of plantings so that it's not just, okay, this time of year where it's lush and full, there will be other plantings, more evergreen type plantings. So even during those winter months, there will be a buffer that's located in there. And I just like to point out that as part of that, we are planting more than what is required per the ordinance. We heard the neighbors' concerns about the buffer being there. So we did try to augment that buffer and that requirement even further than what is actually required there. So I know that's a high level overview of the project and where we started and where we are with the design, but as Matt mentioned, the letters as of right now are will complies. I'm here to answer questions you may have. We can talk about specific comments. We can go through the waiver requests, whatever you'd like me to answer.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of waivers being requested. Do you want to just, if you don't mind, going through those?
Sure. Would you like me to
Quickly.
go through them one by one?
Yeah, I think that's probably
Okay.
best if you don't mind.
Great. So the first one is to permit a combined preliminary final land development submission. We went through the zoning process. There's been a lot of back and forth with the township, so we're requesting that because really the plans are designed to a final land development standard at this point. Okay.
You just keep running through them.
Okay. The next is to permit an aerial plan to show existing features within 200 feet of the property. I feel like that's a fairly standard one rather than doing survey on other people's property. We're providing that aerial. The next is to permit 1 foot contours in lieu of 2 or 5 foot contour intervals. The 1 foot contour intervals are actually more detail, so we like to provide more detail on those plans. The next is to permit features within the area of a utility easement. So we're asking that one out of a kind of a caution thing. There are existing utility easements that we're going to be relocating. There are proposed features there now, but there won't be when we are able to finally relocate them. So that's more of a covering ourselves kind of waiver request. And those easements were put in place as part of the prior approval. So they actually installed infrastructure for that second phase of development and never actually built it. So they don't really serve anything at this point. Next one here is to not require all storm drainage pipes to have a minimum 15-inch diameter. We are only requesting that as it relates to roof drains. So you don't need a 15-inch pipe to convey a roof flow. So that's the request for that. The next is to permit an off-street row of parking to exceed 12 spaces. The areas where that occur are internal to the site. The goal with the layout here was to try and keep those areas of more parking towards the center of the plan. They do not occur around the perimeter. So those rows happen to the north and south of that second building. And then there's another row that happens, I believe it's 16 spaces adjacent to the building that is north of the clubhouse pool area. The next is to permit parking lot trees to be planted elsewhere on site due to lighting and/or underground utility conflicts. There are going to be a fair amount of utilities running in the parking lot area. I mentioned we have those large underground basins, so those happen in the parking areas between the buildings, so it leaves us limited options for providing plantings. We are planting all of the required plantings. However, as part of this, what we're doing is we're relocating them to help augment that buffer, as I previously mentioned. The next one is to permit parking areas to be located closer than 15 feet to the outside wall of the nearest building. Really, this is, again, related to trying to condense the development. We are providing adequate sidewalks as it relates to ADA compliance, things of that nature. So trying to condense that and leave as much landscaping around the perimeter of the property. It should be noted that the required buffer along those property lines is 75 feet, and we are maintaining that. The next waiver here is related to lighting levels. So the way the plan is designed right now, we do have a minimum of 0.5 foot candles in the parking areas. That meets current IES ANSI standards for lighting for residential use. The township's requirement is 1 foot candle. So what we are proposing is to meet that 0.5 foot candle, particularly where we're talking about is adjacent to the neighbors along Fairhill. We want to provide safe lighting, but we feel we can do that at 0.5 foot candles. So that is the request for that. We don't want to provide more lighting than what is necessary, particularly in that situation. Next waiver is to grant parking lots in excess of 20 spaces to exceed a grade of 3%. This really comes down to existing tie-in points. So if you, and I'll go and point it out again. But the grading in this area between the building at the top of the screen and the existing building has that slope of 5%. So in order for us to maintain that, we have to tie into it. So that's really where those parking lot grades come in. The next waiver is very similar to the previous waiver as it relates to parking lot trees. Again, we have those constraints and we're trying to maximize the planting around the perimeter of the property. Next one is to permit the walking distance from a building entrance to a street to exceed 200 feet. My guess is this requirement is actually more geared towards those large residential developments where you don't want lots that are incredibly massive when you have a walking community. For a community like this, the way this is laid out, we feel makes sense. We are providing sidewalk connections to Old Lincoln Highway, and we are providing those sidewalk connections, so walking is possible. It's just the constraints of 200 feet don't really make sense for a community like this. And then the final one is to not require sidewalks to be constructed on both sides of all existing and proposed streets within the land development. I know there's a lot of back and forth about this. We went back and we were able to show sidewalk being proposed along Old Lincoln Highway. And I know it's a little bit difficult to see on this plan. However, I'll do my best to point it out here. So we are proposing sidewalk that goes to our property line down here, up Old Lincoln Highway, and then up Orchard to the intersection of Orchard and Granite. Once you get to Orchard and Granite, there's an existing sidewalk on the opposite side of the street, and our side of the street has a lot of vegetation and a lot of slope there. So in order for us, if we were to install a sidewalk on that side of the street, you'd be clearing a lot of vegetation. That's good buffer area, and possibly constructing a wall to allow for a sidewalk where a sidewalk exists across the street. It's a lot of disturbance where a sidewalk already exists on the opposite side. Then as you go further down Granite, the sidewalk, you then have the ability to cross, and then the sidewalk continues on our side of the property. There's an existing sidewalk already there. So we are proposing sidewalk where we feel it is logical as part of this development.
And the applicant provide a fee in lieu of sidewalk?
Yes.
Mr. Kessler, am I correct that you support all the waivers?
We do, yeah. We've reviewed these with the applicant and their team. And just to clarify, the two that you mentioned, the sidewalk being one of them, and the lighting for some areas, those are really partial waivers. That you'll meet the ordinance in most of the site, but then those areas that you mentioned would be either a little less than the 1 foot candle, or not the sidewalk on all the sides, correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Kessler, you heard the applicant's presentation regarding stormwater management. Do you agree with everything that was represented with respect to the improvements that they're making and the impact it'll have on stormwater in the area?
We do, yeah. We looked at that very closely because of the existing conditions and the history of the site. The current conditions of kind of the open area with the way that it handles stormwater now, which is really not managing it much at all. The proposed design that they have and the plans they prepared, the calculations they provided do show that they are what the applicant's engineer pointed out. They're managing it more on site, releasing it at a reduced rate coming through the system. And although sometimes it's counterintuitive to think of that buildings going up on an open area would actually better manage the stormwater, being that there's really nothing there now to control where it ponds or builds up during storm events. This would actually manage it more site-wide in a better way than what's currently out there.
Thank you. Do any other board members have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is, do we have any renderings as to what what these buildings are going to look like? I know it was one of
Yes.
those asks. Okay.
We do have some renderings. We don't have them for the screen. I have boards of them, though, so I can.
Okay, great.
pull them
And
out.
then my concern is the parking along Fairhill, I guess. And are the residents that are there, are they going to have headlights going into their property? Or is there enough buffer there? Or has that been contemplated to remove that light when cars pull in and their headlights are facing their property now?
So certainly it's one of the concerns that we heard, and what we tried to do with that landscaping is to put more landscaping along that area. So you can see all those, I'll call them blobs for right now, but all those blobs are there, and the reasoning for putting them there is to try to fill in not only below, but if there are gaps, try to fill in where those plantings can make the most impact to minimize things like headlights coming into the neighbor's property. One more thing, I just want to point out that there's a 75-foot buffer from our property line, but then the residences themselves are set back further from our property line. So I think I calculated earlier that the parking spaces on our side of the property from the closest resident would be over 150 feet. So I'm not trying to minimize that. There will be cars parked on our side of the property, but we are doing what we can to try and minimize the impacts.
Great. And one of the things that I saw from the zoning hearing board is that you received a waiver to disturb kind of the tree protection zone. Are you doing anything to go over and above to replant those plantings that are the wooded areas that are being removed from the property?
Yeah, so I think I did mention it before, but sorry, I was talking a little bit fast, so I don't know if I actually did mention it, but we are providing more than what's required. And in one of the letters in the environmental committee letter, they even noted that we are providing more than what is required per the ordinance. So yes, we are certainly trying to maximize the plantings that we have on site.
Do other board members have questions for the applicant?
How many total units do you currently have?
There are 84 units on the property right now.
So you're asking for an additional 64 units on top of the 84, is that correct?
72.
72, okay, sorry. And how much do you estimate the rent is probably going to be?
I can't answer that question.
Hi, my name is Jessica Scully, president of Scully Company, celebrating our 75th year this year. proud generation number 3. Currently, the rents range up to about $2,000 a unit in the current Orchard Square as it exists now. So depending on the length of construction and when everything is delivered, I would expect the rents to be probably 15 to 20% more in the newer units than the older units.
And what kind of, are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or are they?
Yes.
studio?
1 bedrooms and 2
Combination?
bedrooms. Yep. And some 3s. Do you have the unit count?
I do. So there are, as part of the proposed, there are 36 one-bedroom, 28 two-bedroom, and 8 three-bedroom.
Any other questions from the board? Are there any questions or comments from any members of the public? Just come up and state your name and address in the microphone, please.
Hi, Pam Jacobek, lifelong Neshaminy person. But from what I remember, near Neshaminy High School, there's not a great sidewalk from that development to the high school. I imagine there's going to be kids in that development. What's the safety of them? Here I go again with the safety, but I'm serious. Is there going to be a decent sidewalk so they could be walkers? How are they going to get to the high school?
So all
Thanks.
we're able to do is provide sidewalk on our property. We're providing a 5-foot wide sidewalk along Old Lincoln Highway. That's what the requirement of the ordinance is. That's really all we're able to control. And that's what the proposal is.
Ordinance actually requires a 6-foot sidewalk, so we are providing 6 feet for the sidewalk width.
Thank you.
Make it right.
Other questions or comments from the public? Yep, just state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name's Chris Cook. I live on Fair Hill Avenue. Can you put the drawing back up for me, please? I have questions. Okay, Fair Hill Avenue, line of houses. It shows what I'm guessing is probably a black property line running down behind the properties. Previously laid out.
Yeah, this is by survey, that black line.
Okay, and then what is the distance from this point to the parking lot? I think somebody said 150 feet, and math didn't work out for me.
It's about a little over, it's 75 feet of the buffer.
Okay, so up here, it's like
75, right.
75 feet. Okay, so is this going to be clear cut?
No, this
And
is
then-
all remaining existing vegetation.
Okay,
And what you see here, these additional
plantings?
plantings, they're the supplemental plantings.
Okay, because if the area that runs along Granite is any indication on how that's maintained, talk to Pico. You've got trees falling constantly. It's full of poison ivy. It's not maintained. It's a dump. And I'm just afraid that's going to happen back here as well, because even along Granite, you have the people who have apartments throwing stuff out into the area. That's my concern. So, thank you.
Do we know who will have responsibility for maintenance of the area the gentleman was talking about?
The property owner will, and they'll continue to maintain it in accordance with township requirements.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the public? Yep, come on up, state your name and address.
My name's Angeline Doherty. I live at 15539 Old Lincoln Highway. It's right, kind of, you see the open space across from the proposed apartments. I live like down the street from there, so I have PennDOT as my neighbor currently. My concerns are, number one, we already have a lot of speeding that happens on Old Lincoln Highway. When the lady was saying that 40 means 60, 35 means 70. Sometimes the cars go by so fast. The reason I'm pointing that out is because with their proposal of these additional apartments, you're looking at another 160 cars going down my street. So I thank you for addressing the stormwater, because that was a very big concern of mine. But the traffic is a bigger concern because I sit on my front porch, I garden out front, and I mean, literally, I pick trash up out front and I worry. I make my husband follow me in the truck while I get the trash bag out because I don't want to die. So if you could do a traffic study again, you know, before, during, and after they do this, that would be great because, again, you know, and then you got the kids. What are they going to do to make sure that that site is secure while they're constructing it? Because when you look in that map, you can see the school right in the background. And they're teenagers. It's a great place to, the four-wheelers that go down our street, you know, those four-wheelers that the cops can't catch, they're going to think that's a great place to play. And I don't want to see something bad happen. So, and I know PennDOT can't secure the construction site across the street from me because you can look up my phone number, how many times I call when there's somebody over there doing something they're not supposed to be. Besides the fact of the crime that comes with the construction, because it draws, there's things, there's tools, there's vehicles they can steal, so it has to be a secure site. It's not okay. I mean, the PennDOT site is not okay, but nobody's done anything about that. Next thing, the security for the residents. When you have these cars going in and out, it was brought up last time that will just anybody be allowed to park in there? You know, like how are you guys going to gate secure that so it's not like they're having a party at the clubhouse and there's like 30, 40 other people showing up at this Orchard clubhouse and, you know, then the neighbors have to deal with it. And there was also some questions about the clubhouse. How long would it be open and who would be able to rent it? That wasn't addressed, but I got more. And I also want to know if there's going to be enough parking spaces for these 160 cars that are going to be driving down my street. Because if they're not able to park in there, they're going to be parking on my street. Let's see. Oh, and I do agree with that natural fence barrier really isn't a natural fence barrier. It's a mess. I've walked by there. There's trash. It's horrible. And that's pretty much it. But thank you for your time, and please, please, please do the traffic study.
Thank you. Can you address any of the issues raised?
Surely, just on the traffic study point, we prepared a traffic study as part of our land development application. It was reviewed by the township traffic engineer. It was reviewed by PennDOT. We've addressed all comments related to that. We're a will comply on the township review letter. So in that, in that vein, we are a will comply on anything traffic related. It met all the standards from PennDOT and the township. Yeah, go ahead, Jess.
As far as the clubhouse and where people will park, so our mission is managing communities people are proud to call home. So building a community where people can't come home from work at night and park is not something we have any interest in doing. We want our residents to be able to park in the community that they live and walk a short distance into their homes. So we have gone to great lengths to make sure that there would be ample parking. We manage about 8,500 apartments, and typically in a suburban situation like this, it is not 2 cars per every household. Sometimes it is. We've made sure that we can address that, but I just to assume that there's going to be 160 cars speeding instead of slowing down to enter, it is just, not an exact assumption. But the point is we want them to be able to park where they live. The clubhouse is there. It will have a gym. It will have an area they can work from home, and it will overlook the pool. It is not meant to be a party center. And if people can't come home and park where they live, the clubhouse would create a problem for us. So do we expect a baby shower or something here and there? Yes, but we do not have facilities like this open after hours when we're not doing business.
So, and just to put some numbers on the parking, right now there's 84 units in the existing development, and we have 145 spaces. So we're less than 2 spaces per unit. With the new and additional parking, we're improving upon that nonconformity, and we're going to have 312 parking spaces for the 156 units. So we're improving the overall parking ratio. So you're going from less than 2 per unit to just about 2 per unit. So, I mean, I think it's overall, from a zoning perspective, it's an improvement on an existing nonconformity.
Thank you. And there was also just some concerns raised about the construction process and security of the construction site and things of that nature.
Sure, look, I mean, it's not in our interest to have trespassers going onto a construction site. Obviously, we're going to have to comply with the specifications and the developer's agreement, but the difference between perhaps this site and the PennDOT site that was referenced, Scully Company is operating and managing an existing complex right next door. They're going to be there all day, every day. So they're going to be aware of concerns. If there are issues, they'll be able to address it right there. And Jess?
We have 24-hour maintenance, so when there isn't somebody on site on the clock, there is 24-hour call, one of which is right here. So it's in our best interest for no crime as well.
Thank you. Yes, questions, comments from the public? Just please state your name and address.
Hi, Kathy Cook, Fair Hill Avenue. I know you've done traffic studies. You've said that before. I guarantee the traffic study was not done with the Pico construction trucks from the Route 1 project, because there's construction trucks going up and down Lincoln Highway all day long. And now the Route 1 project is coming more north, and there's going to be even more construction trucks coming up and down. So I doubt very much your traffic has addressed that, and it's going to be a nightmare. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Just please state your name and address.
Yeah, Luz Carranza. I live in apartment 1. And I would like to know, where is the plan for the landscape? Because just because the lawyer said that they are going to do more than they are required doesn't make it so, because it's not on the plan. So they're talking about the buffer between the properties and the apartments, but that buffer was put there by nature. It's not put by them. It already exists, right? So they're not doing that. So what is the buffer between the new buildings and the current buildings? Because I don't see any.
Just do me a favor and grab a microphone to take with you, ma'am. Hold on 1 second. If you don't have a microphone, people at home can't hear you.
So where is the buffer here to protect us from them? Because you are removing literally all the woods, everything that the reason we live there, right? So you're taking away that, but you're not, your architect forgot to draw them here. So if your lawyer says that they are going to do more than is required, but it's not in the drawing, it doesn't exist. It's like when you don't put anything in writing, it doesn't exist. Same in architectural plans. So what is the plan?
Sure. So just for a point of context, this is a rendering that we're providing that just shows the one site plan. The land development plans that have been submitted by the township, or submitted to the township, reviewed by the township engineer, they consist of 36 or 37 sheets of details that relate to grading, stormwater management, landscaping. I think there's 4 landscaping, zoomed in landscaping plans that are part of the plans that are on file with the township.
But there are some trees there sporadic.
So yeah, I was going to get.
The other ones are missing.
So as part of this rendering, we wanted to highlight the exterior buffer. There are existing landscaping, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but in that internal portion that we just didn't highlight as part of this rendering.
Can I just, because obviously there's a distinction between a rendering like this and actual architectural drawings, the actual plans.
Sure.
Is there any way that those are publicly available for residents to see?
The full land development set.
Correct.
Yeah, it's on file with the township, and we can certainly make copies available.
So, ma'am, if you want to see the actual architectural plans for the area you're talking about, you can certainly view them here at the township building.
And they're plans prepared by the civil engineer.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
I got a couple of questions. My name is R.J. Saturnino. I've been on Grand Avenue for 50 years. I concur with the traffic study. Also, right now, that's a wooded area. Right off the bat, it's going to push a lot of the deer there, right into the neighborhoods. How's this going to affect the water supply to the neighborhoods? You're going to have an increase in the water. I don't want to get too far ahead, but like the taxes, as far as a school, there's going to be a lot of kids here. This is going to be an increase on the schools. How does that work?
The taxes?
Yeah, the taxes.
So this development provides a rateable to the township. Right now, it's undeveloped property. It's not. There's taxes are only being paid on the existing development that's out there. So upon completion of construction, the county will reassess the property, or this portion of the property as new construction, which will increase tax revenue.
Okay, so we expect to have an increase in tax money in the township?
Yeah, and I mean, just for clarity, when you're talking about school taxes, that's obviously different than the town taxes you pay to the township.
Right,
But-
right.
Right, so what the gentleman was explaining is that obviously the expectation is that tax revenue would be generated from the property.
Okay, and that should be enough to, cover, any extra costs that might be on the schools?
Again, I can't answer questions for the school district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about the water, as water pressure? I mean, I know the pipes are already laid there, and they're going to be tapping in. They got, 70-some apartments. How's that going to affect the water pressure?
Yeah, I think the engineer,
Sorry if I'll just answer from back here, but we are going through the approval process with Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority, so for both water and sewer, and they've indicated there are no capacity issues in the area.
So it should be able to handle it.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Other questions and comments? Yes, sir.
Russell Dougherty, 1539 Old Lincoln Highway. I want to go back to the water part because last meeting we had, there was a 24-inch pipe that was going to run out to the street, basically, and run off all of the basin water that would overflow into that area. What has changed in this plan that we see up here now that is different from the plan that was original? I would say it's better, but I haven't heard any details about what's exactly different. There were 3 basins. They were of a certain nature that, whatever they called it, a baffled system. And then all the water that would run off of that would be 24-inch mains that would run out to the street and then run down the street into whatever creeks or whatever, according to what I believe was the last time we were up here.
Are you referring to when this was at the planning commission stage? Because this is the first time this has been in front of the board of supervisors.
Right, well, this has been in the board, what was it? Planning Commission.
Planning
about 6
Commission?
months
Okay.
ago or whatever it was.
Okay.
And so that was one of the issues, was all this water would be running out at one time, because I think according to the last discussion we had was that they would only gather 20% of the runoff, and that's how that baffle system would work. What's different? I mean, I see if you go back to look at that the building, they're huge, right? They're much larger than the other apartment buildings. So I'm trying to figure out the roof water, the driveway water, the drains, all this water that's going to be running down into this. And I'm assuming that the grade is higher than in the back and runs down towards Lincoln Highway. So all this water is going to be running down into Lincoln Highway and then down the street. Explain the difference from the Planning Commission 6 months ago to today, what is so much better?
Can the applicant address that?
Yeah, sure. Start.
Hi, my name is Len Shashkes. I live in Idlewood Estate for 26 years, and I just want to pay attention on this plan. What you can see, where you have existing houses, you have all green areas around them. When you have a new development, not a single green. Only what you have is brown and black. You're creating a brick and black jungle. Look at this. You destroy all the green area in this development. So look at this. There is no place for just single tree there. What you have? You have no even, the fire truck cannot even go there. You're just creating a building and parking lot and nothing else. And where are the people supposed to go? Where are people supposed to walk? Around what? Black areas? Around parking lots? This is ridiculous. What's happening? I was here a couple years ago when you approved the industrial facility across the street from Old Lincoln Highway. Now you're creating a huge industrial facility right across the street. Where are you going to go? What will happen? We have a single-family dwelling here, and you're creating more like semi-industrial facility. And this is the other one. It should not be there.
Okay, I'm going to ask the applicant's engineer to just address the stormwater question from the other gentleman. Make sure we get that addressed.
Okay, yeah. So starting with the stormwater. So I understood on the planning commission, and I just want to, I'm just going to highlight kind of some areas quickly for the underground basins, just so it's a little bit clearer about what we're talking about. So I mentioned there are three, and I'm going to do my best to outline them. So I'm going to have to jump here. You've got one that's under this parking area here, so it's roughly the size of one of the buildings. You've got another one that's located here, again, roughly the size of the building, and then you've got a large one down here that kind of snakes its way like that. So again, you've got a lot of square footage for basin here. When it comes to your 20% comment, I think what maybe happened there, so as part of, not only does the township review our stormwater calculations, we also have to apply for what is called an NPDES permit. That is a state level permit that's administered by the county. When we are doing our pre-development calculations, we can't just say, well, this is grass with some trees in it. We have to take 20% of that area and consider it as impervious in the pre-development condition, and then take our calculations from there. So you're almost, it's like a added fail-safe, let's call that, you're adding in. So I think maybe that's where the 20% is coming from. I don't know, but yeah, we aren't just capturing 20% of the runoff. That's certainly not the case. We are capturing a substantial amount of the runoff, and that's kind of reflected in the numbers that we produced that shows those large reductions. As far as the connection, sorry, walking back. So right now what happens with the stormwater is it kind of sheet flows across here, collects in the rear here, and then conveys down to a point down here. What we're doing is we're collecting water in those basins, and then we're taking it and piping it down into the street and then connecting into a municipal stormwater system that's located in the street. So instead of having water that's going to be all discharging at the same way, we're kind of cutting it off from this area. So not only are you going to see the gross reductions in the stormwater, but we're also kind of changing where it kind of ties into to get it into a pipe system. It's a better situation for conveyance.
So what's different between this and 6 months ago?
So one, between this and 6 months ago, we've refined the design further. And then on top of what I'm talking about with the basins, we've also added some rain gardens in there as well, and some additional features like the amenities. It is. So that,
That was the main concern 6 months ago, was it that you were dumping all this water in these 24-inch mains.
what I can tell you right now is we have revised the plans per your township engineer's comments. They've reviewed them, and we feel like we are on the same page with saltwater, where it's going to function properly.
Can I just interrupt you, because I think maybe this will help. So he's correct. So our township engineer, Mr. Kessler, has reviewed all this, and what I've heard him say, and he represented again tonight, is that from his perspective, this actually will improve stormwater management over and above what is the current situation at that area. But can you just, do you think you could specifically address the concerns that the gentleman raised, Mr. Kessler?
Sure, I can add a little more of what the applicant's talking about, the kind of revised connection that the proposed design has.
I just want to be clear. So Mr. Kessler is here on behalf of the township. He represents us. So his job is not to, rubber stamp what the applicant is representing. His job is to review this objectively and advise us,
Has it changed 6 months ago?
Well, but I don't understand why that's relevant, whether it's changed or not. I mean, we don't.
That was a big issue 6 months ago.
But that wasn't in front of the Board of Supervisors.
It was in front of the board meeting that we were here we're here now.
But that wasn't us.
Yeah, and what I can say, I do recall the discussion from the planning commission that was geared towards kind of where all the water is collected and then is taken to in the proposed design, making sure that that doesn't cause an issue of where it's all going, right? That's basically what you're asking.
That was what
Yep.
the concern was, and I
Correct.
think that was enough of a concern that it tabled the whole discussion till we're here now.
Yeah, well, they didn't table it at the planning commission, just to clarify. They didn't recommend
Right.
what they were hearing for any approval
It was
that
based
night.
on the water, though.
So the applicant decided to refine their design, continue to adjust what they had,
That's my
and then they're
question.
before the board here tonight. So the connection that the applicant is speaking about is into that storm system that is already in place on Old Lincoln Highway. As we pointed out already, it's a PennDOT road, which means that any connections that they have into existing infrastructure not only do they have to have that reviewed and approved by the DEP and county for just stormwater discharge, the NPDS permit that they mentioned, but also because it's going into public state right-of-way, it has to be approved by PennDOT for tying into their system. So we look at it on the township's perspective to make sure they meet their reduction requirements for stormwater, just how much is coming off the site during certain storms. And then on the other side of that, they also have to have approval by PennDOT for coming into their system.
But I think I think some of the concern you're raising is, can the system handle it, right? I mean, is that?
Well, it's not handling just the new construction, it's handling the entire property.
The existing stormwater.
Exactly.
I understand the concern.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what the concern was 6 months ago.
And let me just for the sake of clarity, so we are not the planning commission.
Well, I understand that, but we were here 6 months ago, and
I
we had
got
this
it.
meeting, and it got tabled for the sole reason was that the water consumption, or whatever you want to call it, retention, is not up to par. It's not good enough.
I understood. I just want to be clear that was not us. They are an advisory board. They provide recommendations. They don't ultimately have the power to approve or deny a plan. We do. So.
Okay, so let me ask the question again. What is different than 6 months ago? What has changed in the water retention basins that they have? I've seen the plans 6 months ago, the baffle system, it runs in, and has anything changed since 6 months?
The change from 6 months ago when it was before the Planning Commission is that the issue of that was heard loud and clear. The applicant addressed and focused on that with the calculations and the design that they have before the board this evening.
Bigger now?
So if I may.
You clarify.
One of the comments we got coming out of Planning Commission was about the sidewalk, adding the sidewalk around the perimeter of the property. When we add that, we have to increase the size of the basins. So the basins, since that time, have increased in size, which provides more stormwater capacity and rate reductions, which I read off the reductions earlier. You're talking about some pretty large reductions in stormwater runoff rate.
And John, also, we're not asking for any waivers from the stormwater management requirements.
Not as it relates to rate, runoff, volume, anything like that.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I was at the Planning Commission, obviously. They certainly had a number of issues with the project. I don't agree with the representation that the stormwater management system was not designed appropriately or sufficient to I think their concerns were more related to the variances that we received for the project as a whole. There was a significant discussion about stormwater management, but I think as John has demonstrated in his comments so far, we're complying with the township ordinance. There's a significant reduction in runoff, and as a result of conversations we've had with the Township Engineer's Office, we've added additional stormwater management controls above and beyond what the ordinance requires.
That's what we had noted as well, is to really clarify the way that the water's being discharged from the site, and that's what they had to provide to have reviewed, and was what we have, as part of our review letter and also recommendation this evening. And like I mentioned, the condition, I guess, that was stated at the Planning Commission that evening was to just ensure that the downstream system was capable of having, the connection that was proposed with the development before you, and that was gone through and checked and reviewed with what they've provided with their plans.
I think the broad answer to your question is the Planning Commission's an advisory board. They review the plans, they make recommendations. Their decision or their recommendation is one thing that we as the Board of Supervisors can consider, and we take into account when we're making our decision. We certainly took that information and feedback. Mr. Keshler reviewed it, and I think is here representing that based on his review, he's satisfied that this improves the stormwater situation and that the system can handle the stormwater runoff. I don't know if that answers your question. I understand from your perspective, you're asking what's changed between then to now. What's changed is we took that information, we considered it, we had our professionals review it, and we've made sure that, the stormwater situation is acceptable.
There was one question wasn't answered about the grade. I mean, they were talking about headlights into their street. Is the grade higher on this property depiction here than these people's property on Fair Hill or Fairdale?
And I'm just because you're not using a microphone, and if there's people at home that they can't hear what you're saying, you just had a question about the grade differelevation change between the existing property that's there and the new property that's been proposed?
The parking lot's going to be, obviously, the cars are going to be up higher. I would assume that the headlights are going to be high as well.
Yeah. Can you address that?
Yeah, our side of the property in that area is a bit higher, but again, that's why we're adding the landscaping to try and create that vegetative buffer.
Okay. Other questions or comments from members of the public? Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I get up for work and I leave every morning 6 o'clock, and PennDOT has people in their trucks running in PennDOT and leaning into the people with the noise thing. I don't live that close. I mean, I live close to the apartments, but they won't be in my backyard doing construction. When will will there be any parameters where they can't start before 7 a.m.?
Yeah.
And how long are we going to have to deal with these trucks going up on top of the ones from PennDOT? I mean, so you're doubling our stress level in our house. I mean, it's like ridiculous. I already have nail pops and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and so we're at the beginning stages, obviously, and there will be pre-construction meetings with the township, and a lot of that stuff will be addressed, times during which construction can take place and things of that nature. I don't know if the applicant is prepared to address any of those things now. It might be maybe too early to be able to.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you indicated, we have to comply with township ordinances. There's going to be a developer's agreement that we sign that in there says specifically we must comply with all township codes. I think there's actually a provision regarding hours of construction, so we've got to comply with that. There's routine inspections. There's a pre-construction meeting. We don't have a timeline on construction because we don't know exactly when we'll start yet.
Well, how long do you expect this to be?
It can take a year to complete. There's going to be site work, there's going to be vertical construction, so it's a lengthy process.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I want to say something else. Look on this plan again. You see, all the parking spots are against the building. Would you like to open your window and have somebody cranking his car right in front of your window? You have no sidewalks, no green zone in front. Look at the existing building. There is not a single parking lot against the building. In here, all these parking lots, all these park right against the door, against the wall. It's absolutely bizarre. So you open your window, and what you can see, somebody is just start his car, polluting right into your window. It is the way to go? It's not in New York, like you live in jungle. This is the area where we have single houses. We need more green area. And what's happening, instead of where we have a green area now, they completely destroyed it by putting buildings and a parking lot and nothing else.
Any more questions or comments from the public? And I'm just going to ask members of the public. I mean, we've heard a lot of questions and concerns raised about a number of issues. I just don't want to keep repeating over and over again. I think so. If you have something new to question or address, please by all means come up. But we just we don't want to keep revisiting the same issues over and over again. Yes, sir.
Lance Seggers, 98 Queen Lily. I wanted to echo some of the traffic concerns. Although I do not live near this development, this board and previous boards have continually allowed developers to get approval to develop lands in Middletown Township. And Miss Sally gave a great presentation on a museum earlier, and she discussed Philadelphia traffic. But I think anybody that lives in Middletown Township and has lived here for more than 10 years understands traffic is outrageous right now. And we haven't even seen the effects of your approval for the Simon development, which is adding 610 units to Middletown Township. So any traffic study done for this site, any traffic study done would be inaccurate because we don't even know the effects of your previous approvals, not just the Simon Group, but other approvals throughout the township. So frankly, this shouldn't even be approved until we know the effects of that other traffic issues. The stormwater management stuff, we talked at the last meeting about adding a tax or a fee on the taxpayers of Middletown Township. While I think they may be doing a great job on this site, we continue to add traffic on the roads, which is going to have to have roads to be expanded, which is going to cause more stormwater issues, which is going to be put back on the taxpayers of Middletown Township, myself and others, and not the Scully Group, okay? Increasing in services, schools, police, emergency services. All of these things increase services, which increase taxpayer money. As far as the one thing on the waiver that I looked at, they were asking for a sidewalk waiver. And I'm sure, you know, the vegetation, you know, it all sounds good. I'm sure they're not going to save any money by a sidewalk. The sidewalk on the other side of the street, Mr. Kessler, how long has that been around? And what condition is that sidewalk?
Over into the one on Granite Avenue.
Correct.
That sidewalk, I believe, was built mostly with that neighborhood, and then some of the corners have been redone in recent years.
So 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old?
I'm not familiar with the age of the
Okay.
sidewalk.
So I would bet that sidewalk on the other side of the street may be a bit old, okay? So what I would say is, instead of saving the Scully Group some money, maybe a new sidewalk on this side of the street where a kid wouldn't have to cross the street and put themselves in danger to access that other sidewalk wouldn't be a bad idea, instead of issuing the waiver, so that they can save a couple of bucks. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments? Yes. Please state your name and address.
Kathy Horan, and I live in the complex. I agree with that gentleman about the green space, climate control, environment. It's all going to go away. My other question is, right now we only have one entrance to this complex. Is that what you're going to keep, is one entrance with all these new apartments?
Can the applicant address that?
We're not maintaining, we're shifting the existing access down and augmenting it to be a little bit wider, but we are going to have that one access into the site. It should be noted that we are adding, as part of the review letters, an emergency access to the site as well, so that will be an added benefit.
But that's only for emergencies.
Correct.
You're going to add 150 cars with just one entrance. And we're already standing in line in the morning to get out because of Neshaminy High School. It's a veritable traffic jam in the morning. My other question is about the rent. Most of us moved there because it didn't have amenities and we didn't have to pay the extra price. A couple of years ago, our leases were changed that you could increase the rent 2 to 3% a year to 10% a year. And yes, you raised my rent 10% a year. And that was the same year you put in, you now have to pay for water. So my rent is now over $200 more a year or a month than it was a couple of years ago, which is not nice because I never got a raise that did that. In fact, I retired in 2019 and had to go back to work to pay for this. I'm 75 years old and I'm working. I don't need a pool, I don't need a clubhouse. I need my rent lowered, not increased. And I hope you people think about that. If your mortgage went up that much in a month, every year, just think of that, if you had a 10% increase every year. $2,000 a month rent, 10% increase is $200 a month. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I will call for a motion. Okay, I will make a motion to grant land development approval for the Orchard Square Apartments at 1801 Old Lincoln Highway, S/LD number 23-07, with the following conditions. Number one, applicants shall comply in full with all requirements of the Middletown Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance and the Middletown Township Zoning Ordinance unless relief is granted by the body having jurisdiction. And number two, any and all remaining review comments shall be addressed in full. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions at this time? I'm sorry? There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions?
I don't have questions, I just have a comment. I completely agree with everything that you have brought us. I don't like the plan. It is a concrete jungle. Unfortunately, it's zoned for apartments. They meet all of the criteria for our ordinance. And unless we have a reason to say no, we're going to be battling them in court later on. So I agree with all of you. I do not like this plan, but I don't have anything in front of me to say no. Do we have anything? One of the things that I'm still concerned about is the comments around the headlights into the houses. And now that I know that it's elevated, is there anything additional we can add to the motion that can adjust just for that, or take that into consideration to make sure that that is completely, tied up?
So we can certainly look at adding a condition, additional buffering or fence if
I
that's.
was going to suggest we're agreeable to a condition that says you want us to work with the township engineer to come up with screening, additional screening or buffering that will shield headlights onto the Fairhill Avenue residents. We'd be fine with that.
So we can add something, a condition of additional buffering to the township engineer's satisfaction.
Great.
So I'll amend the motion to add that additional condition. Is that fair? Okay.
Second.
So there's been a motion and a second. Any additional board questions? Any additional questions from the public? Seeing no.
Real quick, the headlight issue, I'm not so concerned with, but the security light issue. There was, in the last meeting, they said there was a way of focusing the security lights down. That's my problem now. Coming into the house, is the security light on the building. And you look at the buildings, those are going to come right into our house. Not so concerned about the parking as I am the security.
So the comments that
Maybe this wouldn't be a bad thing
I
to
can clarify
take up
for
to
you?
the courts and maybe let them decide.
If I can clarify,
think the
just
lighting
with
was-
lighting,
yeah.
the applicant did mention that they're complying with a few the remaining comments, and we'll work with them to ensure that there's other shields or lighting that's directed and stays on the property with
Yeah,
what they have
downward
proposed.
shields and things like that. And also, the lighting plans are shown right now, they show no measurable light spillover at the property line. So, but we're happy to continue to work with the township engineer, make sure that they're happy with that to their satisfaction.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Before y'all all finish the voting, please think about this. We all have single homes there.
Can you just talk into the microphone? Because
Yes, sorry guys, and I understand business, and I know y'all want to make a profit, y'all want to do more, but please understand this is a single family place. I do understand that it's zoned for apartments. You have apartments there. Middletown is becoming already not the city. I moved it out of the city to have the quiet, and you guys are gonna. Please, we just need the peace, quiet. We don't need to be in the city. If not, we return back to the city. So please, I do understand, but if you keep that in mind of how all this is being developed right now, please keep that in mind. That's all I'm asking. And also, don't forget about the wildlife, okay?
Thank you. Okay, been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you to members of the public that came out and expressed
Thank
their
you very much for your
concerns
time
and
this
comments.
evening.
Thanks so much.
Next on the agenda, we have an update on the Langhorne Yardley Road intersection project.
Good evening. My name's Don Jacobs from TPD, the firm that led the design of this project, joined tonight by Jeremy Burton representing PennDOT construction team. asked to give an update regarding the Langhorne-Yardley Road intersection improvements project. Cognizant of the time, so I'll just give a very brief summary of the project improvements, and then we'll move into a brief description of the general staging of the construction, and then answer any questions that the board or the public may have. You can see on the screen, it's an overview plan of the Langhorne-Yardley Road intersection improvements project. Basically involves 3 roads, and hopefully you can see the cursor, or if you can't, I'm going to, yeah, it looks pretty visible. So starting from the left side of the screen, there's Bridgetown Pike, State Route 2010. Stretching across the page from lower left to upper right is Langhorne-Yardley Road, SR 2049, State Route 2049. And then going up and down along the right side of the sheet is Woodburn Road, State Route 2033. The basic premise of the project was to improve the 2 signalized intersections formed by these 3 roads. At the left, the signalized intersection of Bridgetown Pike and Langhorne-Yardley Road, and at the right, the signalized intersection of Woodburn Road and Langhorne-Yardley Road. Project area characterized by land uses including Core Creek Park, which these 3 roads wrap around, so Core Creek Park's in the upper left. Township properties housing the Emergency Services Building, which has both fire and ambulance emergency squad in that same building. The Steyer Orchards, the middle school property in the upper right, the very upper right northeast quadrant of Woodburn and Langhorne-Yardley Road. And then, of course, all of the residences, there's residential developments off of these main roads, and then there's individual residences as well. The project improvements for Bridgetown Pike and Langhorne-Yardley Road, the existing signal will be replaced by a single-lane roundabout, which will provide sufficient capacity but increase safety as roundabouts do. You can see that there will be some realignment of Bridgetown Pike in order to make that design work. At Woodburn and Langhorne-Yardley Road, it will remain signalized, but there will be auxiliary lanes added, left turn lanes on all 4 approaches. The northern leg of Woodburn Road will be realigned to intersect opposite the southern leg and cure the sight distance issues at that signal. Signal itself will be fully replaced and modernized with pedestrian accommodations. This is a multimodal project. The bicyclists will be accommodated by 5-foot paved shoulders throughout the entire project area that's being improved. Pedestrians will be accommodated through trails along the park frontage on Woodburn Road and Bridgetown Pike, which will connect to the signal with the pedestrian accommodations at Woodburn, and will connect to the roundabout at Bridgetown Pike. There will be sidewalk links along the southern side of Langhorne-Yardley Road to the east of Woodburn Road. The 2 pedestrian crossings that are existing that will be enhanced through this project, the one at Briggs Road, just east of Briggs Road on Langhorne-Yardley Road, and then the one that's slightly off the picture here, but is where the school driveway meets the park driveway on Woodburn Road, and there's an existing pedestrian crossing just south of that intersection. So that's a summary of the project area and project improvements. If we could go to the next slide. Pardon me? Well, I think as you know, if you've been out there, construction has started. This is PennDOT's project in terms of PennDOT acquired the right-of-way for the project, and PennDOT is undertaking the construction of the project. As we talked about, it's 3 state roads that are the nexus of the improvements for the project. The staging will, the sequence will be, there's a lot of utilities that have to get moved, both above ground that you'll be able to see in terms of utility poles, and then also below ground in terms of a water line relocation near the roundabout, a gas line relocation on Langhorne Yardley Road across on the northern side near the school, and then a sewer line relocation in Woodburn Road north of Langhorne Yardley Road. So that will be undertaken or started at least this year, along with the realignment of Bridgetown Pike to accommodate the roundabout, the realignment of Woodburn Road to join into the signalized intersection at a better angle, and then the improvements to Langhorne Yardley Road east of Woodburn Road. So all of that is slated to start this year. 2025, you'll see the completion or the continued construction of many of those improvements. The roundabout itself will require a detour, which is scheduled to go into effect next summer of 2025. It's got a 60-day maximum duration per the contract, 60 calendar days. We've coordinated with emergency responders.
Can I ask you a question? Where is the detour going to go? Where are they going to direct that traffic?
The signed detour utilizes Woodburn Road, 432 and 413, excuse me, 232 and 413. So it keeps the traffic on state roads. And it gets it around the intersection of Bridgetown Pike and Langhorne Yardley Road, which is going to have to be closed to complete the roundabout construction. So a lot of the roundabout can be constructed offline before that detour has to go into effect, but the detour is needed to complete the roundabout.
Are they able to push that off until the summertime and the kids are out of school? Because I'm not sure if you've driven that area during school hours. Is that a possibility, or they can't say?
It's scheduled for summer 2025. So it's being coordinated to do what you're asking, I believe.
Can I ask one more question? You said it was going to be completed or by 2025, or some parts of it would be completed?
Good question, thank you. There is a post-detour phase of the construction. It's scheduled to be construction completed in May 2026.
And is that, where are we with the Woodburn Langhorne Yardley timing? What was that again? When is that scheduled to be finished and completed?
It's the same time. It'll be, you know, you'll see the roads getting widened, and then
Okay.
the new signal equipment will go
And is
in.
that 60-day detour for both intersections?
The detour is only needed to complete the roundabout.
Okay, so Woodburn and Langhorne Yardley will remain open consistently throughout the entire project?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and I would just ask, you know, knowing we have the issue with the trains and Woodburn, that we try to be pretty specific as to how we set up that detour. Like, the last thing I want is people getting detoured down Wood Lane. So we should make sure that that's,
PennDOT is in charge of the detour.
okay.
And the signed detour is along the state roads I mentioned to the north. It's on PennDOT's website if you'd like to see the detour plan. You just Google PennDOT Langhorne Yardley Road, and it pops you right to the PennDOT webpage for this project. Oh. I've talked right through it by now, Nick, so thank you. This is the detour plan.
And I've actually had I have one last question, had a lot of comments around the woodland that was kind of taken down to make these improvements along the roads. Is there additional plannings that are going to occur once kind of the roads are in place?
Yeah, there's not too much in the way of landscaping. There's 5 basins being created through this project, and they will be grown with a wildflower mix, but there's not currently in the contract a re-landscaping. We're just clearing what's needed to tie the grading of the improvements into existing conditions.
Any questions from any other board members? Mr. Vella?
I was just going to share that we do have a representative from Pennoni, the project management crew for PennDOT. If there's any residents who have questions, they'd like to direct to PennDOT and the representative.
Is there anything you just wanted to say or present before taking questions?
Yeah, like I said, I can represent the construction aspect. I mean, what you're seeing out there right now, like Don was mentioning, for the realignment, you're starting to see some land clearing right now. The initial phases, tree clearing. You're getting that Bridgetown Pike realignment to get to a new roundabout. The roundabout on the existing pavement right now, it's only representing about 20-25% of the new roundabout. A lot of the new roundabout is getting that grade down. That's up on the bank on the Core Creek Park side of the road. And so it can be a nice level, safe roundabout and the realignment of Woodburn Road. So that's what that's the land clearing you're seeing out there right now. Again, if there are any construction-related questions, the construction manager representing PennDOT. So, Don got us to this point, and they approved plans and the design. So now we're in construction. So, any questions?
Anyone have questions? Any members of the public have questions? If you do, just come on up to the microphone. Yeah.
Hi, Dory Bauer, 1821 Langhorne Yardley Road. I have a question. Our land has been semi-partially cleared. Court Creek has been cleared, but if you look at the old schoolhouse, you know where that is? It's like catty corner from my house. It has a ton of trees. And if you're coming from Newtown up to the intersection, you can't see to make a right-hand turn on Red, which I hate. You can't see up that road because all the trees are all along there. I was wondering, are those going to be taken down? Because there's been a lot of trees throughout the area taken down, and I understand that. That's fine. Even in the Core Creek Park, which was great, you took out a lot of dead trees that were scary. I mean, widowmakers. But if you look at the map, coming up the orange to the intersection, if you go through the intersection, right there, it's perfect. A little higher. But anyhow, no, the other way. Anyway, there's a house there. It's the old schoolhouse, and I really think, and I would implore you to look at that tree situation and cut some of those trees back, because everybody else has lost stuff. You cannot see up that road. You can if you pull out, but then you're going to get hit by the oncoming traffic from Langhorne Yardley Road. But, just have a look-see and really think about, sorry, keep talking away from the mic, really think about cutting some of those trees back, because it is a danger. I mean, our family's been there for 69 years. I've been there for 63 and a half. But it's a lot of change. Yeah, people are upset, but the trees are gone. There's nothing you can do about that now. But you don't know anything about your PennDOT PICO. I get the two of you mixed up all the time. PICO came out when I wasn't there today and talked to my brother, and they're like, oh, we're going to take all this stuff out because we're going to go up this hill. I don't know how they're going to go up that hill, because they have to put a telephone pole. I'm not even sure where on my property. They have to move it back from the widening of the road. I would kind of like to know that, because I don't like the wires that are going up past the house anyway. They're very high voltage. And there's a couple of poles that are going to be set back. But I'm just wondering, all this stuff is happening. You know, I've been given plans, but it doesn't, no one's sitting down with me and saying, all right, see this piece of land, see this piece, that's where we're gonna put the pole. Great, perfect. That's all I wanna know. Because it's a very interesting and intricate and complicated and needed project, because nobody can make that curve on Woodburn Road. I don't know why, but they just don't seem to be able to make it. So that's just my thoughts. And when school starts again, because they have the elementary school, which somebody told me is going to open up at the end of this year, there's going to be a whole lot more traffic coming from, like, the Levittown area. I think it's just Pearl Buck, right? Going up to the new school, elementary school. Does anybody know? It's not another elementary school, just for traffic-wise, I'm thinking, because a lot of parents drive their kids to school. I don't know why we use buses anymore, but a lot of parents, I can tell the time by the noise of the road, and it's very noisy. And if you live there, you would understand, but most of you guys don't, so you don't understand. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, for, oh, hi. Go ahead, ma'am.
You're Jeremy Burton, right?
Yes.
Hi. Mr. Valla connected me with you early in May, and I appreciate your communication, but I feel, Dory's right, we're not getting enough communication on Langhorne Yardley Road. So I appreciate being able to reach out to you, and you responded immediately, but I didn't know they were going to do anything with the sewer lines and the gas lines. So I would eventually like to sit down with somebody and figure out how that's going to affect my property. I am just on the other side of Briggs Road. So we'll connect later, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. I don't really know if you can actually answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Obviously, as you guys heard, there's also the Route 1 project going on, right, which isn't exactly close by per se, but it's not too far. I didn't know if you had any idea of, like, how the timing of that is going to work out with, like, the timing of this, because obviously if people are detouring, they're going to also, aside from the detours, be looking for alternate routes to get to and from places, and I know they're doing the construction on Route 1. I didn't know if you could even really comment on it, but I thought I would ask.
I can't speak to the other projects, but I know in general, PennDOT does, coordinate inter projects together. The RC2, RC3 upcoming, they're all PennDOT projects, and they talk to, other ACEs and other entities from PennDOT.
I got a quick question about that very point. Right now, across the street from our house at 1539 Old Lincoln Highway, they use that as a depot for materials, are you planning on using that during this project so we're looking at maybe 2 more years before all of that will be removed from across the street? I don't know how long their lease is for, but I mean, they've been there for 5 years so far, so I'm just curious, are they going to use that space across from our house as their depot for all of the equipment that they're doing close by?
You're speaking of the Old Lincoln Highway location? Yeah, no, that's nothing to do with Langhorne Yardley Road. Our contractor, James DeMarcy, coordinated with Core Creek Park. They have a staging area right off Park Road and Bridgetown Pike.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, gentlemen, for, oh, sorry, you have another question?
Sorry, just one more quick thing. I've been speaking with several different people from PennDOT, et cetera, and we have an old hand-dug well on the front of our lawn, which for some reason on the plans it says a birdhouse. I don't know. But we're trying to make sure that that's not in. If it was built or constructed in the 1700s. I think it used to supply water for the house that was just sold across the street, the big white house, from my property. Anywho, but we keep talking to people and we keep saying we have water and we have sewer. And nobody seems to know. Every time we tell somebody, they're like, you do? And it's like, yeah. That's going to have to be impacted too, because that's part of where the road's going to be widened too, where we have the water shut off, for water. But I just don't want somebody coming along not knowing, and I keep trying to, talk to everybody I can, that we have water and we have sewer and we have the well. And they're far enough back, or at least the well's far enough back, I think, from the widening of the road, but the water and the sewer might be impacted, that they have to be lowered or have a new turn off or something put in. That's all I want to make sure that they're aware of, because I don't want to be without water and sewer. And I wanted to ask, I know it's not your guys' job, but on Woodburn Road, heading towards Stiers, there's 2 houses, White House and John Gadziba's house, and I can't think of their last name right now. They don't have water. I mean, yeah, they don't have water. They have sewer, but they don't have water when the development across the street was put in, the Orchard Crossing. And it's kind of sad that they don't have water. I don't know, and I really doubt that they could add this to the project, but run a water line while they have the road ripped up. Instead of doing the road and then somewhere down the line, they have to rip up the nice, beautiful, smooth road to put in water lines, unless you can run it from the North Station to their properties. But that would be hard too, because now you have the darn cell tower, and they have gazillions of wires running from that cell tower down to the road, to the post, to the telephone poles. Jeez, I can't think. Too tired of this too. But anyhow, I just wanted to see if you can put it in your mind somewhere and think about at least getting them water. They have sewer, but they don't have water. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, gentlemen, for coming tonight and presenting and answering questions. We appreciate it, and we'll ask you to continue to keep us posted on this project, any changes, any developments. Thanks very much. All right, next on the agenda, consideration of enacting ordinance number 24-01, tax incentive. Mr. Vallow.
Good evening, Board. Before you is consideration of enacting Ordinance 2401. So this came before the Board in the month of March. This ordinance was duly advertised within the last couple of weeks. And as a recap for those who may be hearing of this for the first time, this ordinance would allow for up to $500 tax relief for our local emergency service volunteers from either the township real estate tax or the township earned income tax. And that's a graduated scale based upon how much their actual tax liability is, but it's a maximum of $500 per year per volunteer. And if they meet the criteria that are outlined in the ordinance, which is responding to 25% of the agency's calls or 25 hours of documented service to the agency. This, for our local residents, this only applies to township residents who volunteer with one of our 5 local emergency service agencies. And this would be compounded by the school district's $800 real estate tax incentive, as well as the county's $1,000 real estate tax incentive. This does not replace, this supplements the existing $250 annual stipend program that the township does every single year. So we're looking at, if you combine this new tax incentive, the school district, the county, as well as the stipend program, and now combined total of $2,550 of direct payments and or tax relief for all of our township volunteers. Assuming everybody is at the maximum possible credit limit, we'd be looking at a total of about $40,000 per year. As we talked about in March, this is deferred revenue. This is not necessarily a direct payment. And so we expect that to be made up just through general adjustments in tax revenue year over year.
Thank you, Mr. Vallow. Any board members have questions for Mr. Vallow? Seeing none, I will move to enact ordinance number 24-01, providing a tax credit of up to $500 from either the township real estate tax or earned income tax for qualified volunteers. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I don't even know who got that in first. So you guys have to flip a coin. Everybody. Who takes the minutes? Somebody's gonna have to guess. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public?
I don't have a question, I just have a quick comment.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say, I'm glad to see that it's either the property or the EIT, because there are obviously volunteers that rent, and we want to make sure that they also feel like they're being included. So I just wanted to say thanks for doing your due diligence on this and making sure it's comprehensive and more people can get a maximized benefit from it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Any other questions? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing the purchase of an Axon in-vehicle cameras and body-worn cameras. Chief Barbarella.
Good evening once again, Mr. Kizak and fellow board members. In October 2023, the Board of Supervisors approved the acquisition of in-vehicle cameras and body-worn cameras from LensLock. However, as implementation commenced in early 24, our IT team uncovered significant security and infrastructure issues with LensLock. Despite extensive efforts to resolve these issues, it became clear that there were going to be potential risks to our township's IT infrastructure and that LensLock lacked compatibility with our existing systems. Fortunately, LensLock agreed to the return of their equipment at no cost to the township. In response to this, our police department is now advocating for the purchase of 37 in-vehicle cameras and 61 body-worn cameras from Axon. Axon is the industry standard. About 70% of all police departments, law enforcement agencies across the country that employ body and dash cams utilize Axon. Axon is widely used by neighboring police departments, including Bristol Township, Ben Salem Township, Northampton Township, and the Philadelphia Police Department. Although LensLock was initially considered as optimal for purposes of our budget, the superior quality and much better infrastructure of Axon make it the best choice for our police department. Regarding budget impact, the initial cost for year one is $180,282, with a subsequent annual expenditure of $109,135 over the remaining 4 years. It's a 5-year contract, just like LensLock was, totaling $616,824. Despite exceeding the LensLock projection by $96,000 over the 5-year term, Axon's superior performance and reliability, I believe, justifies this investment. That current, our PCCD grant, Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency grant, amounting to $168,932, will offset the overall expenditure, resulting in a total township cost of $447,892 over 5 years. So just to summarize, LensLock was about $520 over 5 years. Axon is $616. The 3 initial bids that we got for cameras were LensLock, Axon, and Motorola. Motorola was $675. Axon is $616. LensLock was $520. Just in a nutshell, we were too big of a department for LensLock. We're much better off with Axon. It's a much superior product. We should have gone with them from the start. We already would have been up and running. So I think this is the smart choice for our police department moving forward. So if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Chief. And obviously, LensLock was perhaps more budget-friendly, but this is certainly, like many situations, one where you don't want to put quality or security behind cost. And I do want to thank yourself and any other members of your department and our Director of IT, Chad McGee, for recognizing the security risks with the LensLock product. And it certainly sounds like we're getting a better product, more suited to the size and complexity of our department. So while the budget impact may be larger, again, security, safety, and quality, at least in my mind, are more important and make the additional expenditure worthwhile. So are there any questions from any board members for Chief Barbarella? If not, I can accept a motion.
I move to authorize the purchase of a 5-year contract with Axon, Inc. for 37 in-vehicle cameras and 61 body-worn cameras. The purchase includes unlimited cloud video storage and amounts to a total of $616,824 with payments spread over 5 years.
And again, while that is the total price, it will be offset by the PCCD grant, correct, Chief?
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions?
Can I ask, when will they start to be trained on the cameras, since we're behind a little bit?
Right, we are a little behind, so we're relying on Axon's timetable. I mean, one thing I will give Axon credit for, they're moving fast for us. They originally were like 120 days out from body-worn cameras, and that's simply because of the supply chain and the demand, Ms. Hannah. But it looks like we're going to be up and running, hopefully, within 60 days from today. Once it's approved, they're just waiting for the approval from the board.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I guess my question, and maybe this is a silly question, but it says it's going to be kept on the cloud. How long do you think stay on the cloud? I'm just curious.
Forever.
Oh, all right.
Right. One of the questions, or one of the issues that Mr. Valla brought up at our meeting a couple weeks ago, which is true, is, Ms. Payne, we really no longer own anything. We kind of lease everything. So this is going to be, I mean, this is a 5-year contract, but after 5 years, in order to access all of the cloud data that we have, it's going to be an ongoing annual amount for probably forever, as long as we employ the body and dash cams, unless the parameters of how it's done is changed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chief. Any other board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing the purchase of one John Deere Z950M Z-Track mower. Mr. Gartenmeyer.
Good evening, board members. In front of you, you have a quote and a proposal for 1-0 turn. It was put in the budget when we did our budget workshops. This is actually coming out of the road machinery fund, so it's not coming out of capital, it's coming out of a different fund. I did receive 3 prices, and this being the lowest. We actually looked at a electric lawnmower, but that's not there. It was almost twice the cost of this. So they're not there yet, but it was something we did look into with the green ability and everything, but it's just not there yet. So I'm recommending this piece of equipment that we purchase.
Thank you, Mr. Gartenmeyer. Any questions from the board?
And we did allocate this in the budget, correct?
Yeah, it's actually coming out of the road machinery fund, so it's not coming out of the capital fund. It's coming out of a different fund.
Other questions? If not, I can accept a motion.
I move to authorize the purchase of one John Deere Z950M Z-Track equipped with quick shoot grass blocker, 60-inch side discharge mower deck, and fully adjustable suspension seat with armrests from Deere & Company of Cary, North Carolina, for a total of $13,008.68.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Gartenmeyer.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of rejecting bids and rebidding of Middletown Community Park Barn Deck. Mr. Copera.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members. On December 2023, the board allowed us to go out to bid for a wooden deck and the barn. We put it out to bid on March 27th. We had a pre-bid meeting on April 10th. And after opening the bids on May 1st, we had 3 bidders. After doing due diligence through the month of May, we determined that none of these firms meet our responsible contractor ordinance. Therefore, I respectfully request the board to allow me to reject all bids and go out to bid again.
Thank you, Mr. Copera. Any questions from any board members?
Yeah, what exactly of our ordinance did we have to reject because of?
So we have a responsible contractor ordinance that says specifically that you have to graduate an apprentice to journeyman in each of the last 5 years. So that is a very high threshold. So none of the firms met that requirement or could prove that they met that requirement.
So I just to jump in, I did review all of the documents submitted. The second lowest bidder did submit the proper materials to comply with the RCO. However, they submitted ones for a subcontractor. The general contractor also has to comply, and they didn't have it. So they were almost there, but it was just the general contractor also has to submit the same documents.
And one of these that are bidding is a CoStarz vendor, correct? I believe it's Dan & Sons.
That might be the fact. They never, I don't know that for a fact. They didn't checked the question 9 and 10 as yes, so I didn't even consider them. I just
Right.
spent my time with the first two.
Yeah, this is not the first time that you are up here saying that I have to reject all the bids for Community Barn. I think it was the roof last time that took a couple of bids, 3 times. And this is my 3rd year on the board, and this consistently keeps happening. When I look into it, we have one of the most restrictive RCOs probably in the state. I'd like to ask the township staff and professionals to start to recommend to us how we can update the ordinance. Again, I understand the spirit of the ordinance today, right? It is to make sure that we have the correct professionals with the correct skills doing our jobs, but it's too restrictive. And what it's causing is a minimal supply of contractors that can do it. So when you reduce the supply, costs go up, resources are being utilized, and the taxpayers are spending a lot more money because of it. So I'd like to ask that for the next meeting, the next subsequent meetings, we talk about this.
And if I could chime in for a second, my big objection to the RCO right now is that it offers no form of relief, meaning it has to go out to bid, gets rejected, goes out to bid, gets rejected, but there's no off-ramp, there's no plan B. So if this is reviewed, that would be my wish.
And again, I'd like to understand, how much are we spending from a resource and a time standpoint of our staff and from a cost standpoint of doing each of these subsequent bids?
Any other questions for Mr. Copera? If not, I can accept a motion.
I move to reject all bids to replace the wooden deck on the barn building located within Middletown Community Park and advertise and rebid this project on Penn bid.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Any other board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Copera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next on the agenda, MS4 presentation. Who's got this one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kessler.
Yes, fellow board members, members of the public. The MS4 program is always more interesting after 9 p.m., so we appreciate that. We did want to just provide an overview of what the program is for the township. It's an annual kind of refresher on that and just some projects and objectives that are part of the MS4 program going forward. So the MS4 program, as a refresher, is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. That's the 4 S's there. It's a permit with the PEA, DEP. As the applicant before with the land development had mentioned, there's a NPDES permit that private homeowners or private home associations or private developments have. The same is true with the township and the storm system that's for the township. It regulates and takes a look at how the system discharges to the streams and the waterways. And it's focused on reducing pollutants into our streams and waterways, and then projects that can best manage that. The results of the projects that come out of the MS4 are really geared towards mitigating flooding issues, water quality for the streams, and also capacity for the streams. So when we look at the township as a whole there, that's our MS4 watershed map. You can see the different watersheds we have for the creeks that we have throughout the township. And the MS4 program is looking to best manage how to keep it good quality streams, as well as projects that can reduce flooding in areas that have experienced it over the years. So this map is really our full map of our features throughout the township, our inlets, our pipes, our outfalls to the streams. And it is a tool that's used to control if if there's spills once in a while, where that goes in the system. If there's a development, how that ties into the system and discharges to the streams. If we have storm events that cause damage, where that connects and how it all connects not only within Middletown, but also with the surrounding municipalities. So understanding the system as a whole is really the goal of the MS4 program. We look at areas that have high pollutant risks, such as industrial sites and car service businesses and things that just cause more pollutants to go into the system. What kind of projects can be placed to strategically benefit the most when we look at doing these. The sediment reduction that it's looking at is everything that's washing into this system, into the streams, and that accumulates in the waterways. That's really your sediment. So it's looking at trying to reduce that, and the DEP has outlined a 10% reduction throughout the system. And you can see, as a township of our size, the amount of pounds really that are generated into the system. It's a significant number, and so is that reduction number that we have. So this list isn't for reading at all, obviously, but it's showing all the projects that are really outlined in what we have with the DEP that's referred to as our pollutant reduction plan. It looks at projects that can achieve our reduction goals over the course of the permit cycle, which is a 5-year cycle. As you can see, it's a long list. The colors on there are the different watersheds. So working with either grant funding opportunities or also budget planning, trying to identify projects that we can incorporate and kind of chip away at meeting these goals. DEP with the MS4 is one of these, I would say, unfunded mandates that the township has. It's a good overall intention to improve the overall system. Obviously, the flooding in certain areas, updating the system to be better at that is well worthwhile. But there isn't really funding provided with the MS4 program that comes from the DEP and the permitting. So it's always a challenge to try to identify that. If you add up the estimates for these projects, and they include stream bank restorations, they include basin retrofits, a lot of the things that we bring before for grant funding. If you add these all up over the 5-year permit that we have, it's about $8 million worth of stormwater projects that would achieve these goals system-wide. So every year we prepare an annual report. The report goes to the DEP, shows our progress as a township. It shows what projects we might have planned, how we might be able to achieve those, whether we go for grants or just budget planning. And that is the overall goal of our program going forward. The DEP understands that there's not unlimited funds for this, but at the same time, they're looking to have progress be made because the systems that are in every neighborhood in the township really interconnect, as well as how they connect with the streams on a more regional basis. So it's a lofty goal overall, but they do push to make sure that there's progress, at least made as much as possible with available funding that's associated with these kinds of projects. So I mentioned it'll be brief. That's the overall broad brush of our MS4 program. Happy to answer questions, and we'll continue to provide updates on projects that are identified to move our program forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kessler. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Kessler or members of the public regarding MS4? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Kessler, and that does appropriately lead us into the next agenda item, which is discussion of Stormwater Advisory Committee. Ms. Dealy-Gouls?
Thank you. Quick update from our last meeting. You authorized that we start working on the Stormwater Advisory Committee. We did seek applications from residents. We did receive about 7 or 8. We met as a team to start talking about the process. Just from a timeline standpoint, we will give you those applications for your consideration to appoint a committee at our next meeting in July. Between now and then, we're going to be working to engage our EAC. If you are able to do the appointments on July, we'll get that committee going right away. July and August, the committee will be working. We're going to be engaging large property owners in August. The overall goal is that we'll have 2 public meetings on this topic that will be held in September and October. So hopefully we have a good timeline developed. We're working with RVE. They have done a couple of other stormwater projects in other communities, so that certainly gives us a little bit of a leg up in getting started. So just for the public, if anyone does have interest, we'll still accept any letters of interest.
So is there a deadline for applications for anybody
We
who's
did,
interested?
we said the deadline was last Friday, because I was hoping that we were going to be able to pull them all together, but I realized it wasn't really going to be enough time for you guys to contemplate. So why don't we say that the deadline is, let's say, next Friday?
Okay, and for any residents who are interested, it's a great opportunity to get involved in your community on an extremely important issue, and we're always looking for residents who are interested in volunteering and serving their community. How many board members are we looking for?
Well, I mean, I think that we should have maybe between 5 and 7. It's not necessarily determined yet. But I think the good thing is that this is a compressed way to get involved. You're not making a commitment for a year's worth of meetings. You're really making a commitment for a few months' worth of meetings.
Great. So if you're concerned about stormwater or have any expertise in that topic, we welcome your application. Any questions from the board for Ms. Teoli-Cools about the Stormwater Advisory Committee or the timeline? Any questions from the public? Nope? Okay. So then that will take us to other business. I'll start with Mr. Kessler.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Valla.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Esposito.
I just want to announce that the board did hold an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss litigation and personnel matters.
Thank you. Ms. Teoli-Cools.
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Corporal.
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Payne.
I just want to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. That is all.
Thank you. Ms. Kane.
Nothing further.
Ms. Hannah.
Nothing.
And I have nothing, so I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.